All right, it's already been a really bad week for the deep state. Here to talk about the very latest developments and help break it all down, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham. You know, I had you on, although when you don't avoid the show by traveling all over the world and you make yourself available, this is your first job. I don't understand why you say no.
My bad.
Very bad. Exactly. I agree. Steele's stunning pre-FISA confessions.
Yeah.
This new report and the closed-door testimony where we know Bruce Orr under oath said, well, I told everybody in August of 2016 it's an unverified document, the dossier, and Steele hates Trump and Hillary paid for it. You know, as I do, that it's unverifiable, but does it not say at the top of a FISA warrant, I just learned this today, verified?
Well, it's supposed to be. You're supposed to say under oath to the court that the document I'm presenting to you is accurate. That's the whole point of getting a warrant. You got to have reliable information. But why is this so important? We know in August of 2016, Orr tells the FBI senior leadership, you got to watch this Steele guy. He's out to get Trump. Now, what do we know? That Christopher Steele went to the Department of State on October the 11th to try to get the Department of State to release the dossier to the public for political reasons. They tell the FBI, this is 10 days before they get the first warrant application verified. So 10 days before they applied for the FISA warrant, they were told in August that Steele's out to get Trump. In October, Steele goes to the State Department trying to get them to release it to the public for a political reason.
You know, you can't even make this up. Now,
Yeah.
I understand there's a Florida case, and we might get information from Steele, but we do know in the interrogatory where he was under the threat of perjury, he actually said, I have no idea if any of this is true, 50-50 at best. So doesn't that then render the dossier, the dirty Russian dossier, unverifiable?
Well, why is this important? We should all be concerned if our government's getting a warrant against an American citizen under the FISA Surveillance Act without accurate information. What do we know? We know that without the dossier, the warrant would not have been issued. People in charge tell us that. We now know that the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele, was on the payroll of the Democratic Party. He was not a reliable informant for the FBI. He was trying to destroy Trump because he's paid by the Democrats to take Trump down. They knew all of this, or should have known all this, before they applied for the warrant. So here's what needs to happen. Somebody needs to go to the FISA court and tell them that the FBI had plenty of notice that this guy was on the payroll of the Democratic Party and he was out to get Trump, and the dossier was not verified.
Senator, I'm not that smart. Would that be a conspiracy to commit fraud on a FISA court? And where I grew up in New York, and I know down in South Carolina where you grew up, you were living in a bar. I was working in a bar till 4:30. We have similar backgrounds. Where I grew up, you say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, so, yes, Your Honor, no, Your Honor. And if you lie to the judge, it's not going to work out really well in the end.
Well, here's the question. How could you not know that Steele should be looked at really hard, given what Orr said and given his actions on October 11th? You got to remember, the guy who started this, Steele, went to the State Department, and I don't know why he went to the State Department, for the express purpose of having the State Department release the dossier before the election.
And that was memorialized, we now know. That's the interesting part, and we have more emails coming.
10 days before the warrant.
Let me ask you, before the warrant, just like Orr said, he told everyone. Let me go to Robert Mueller for a second. You said you don't care whether or not he testifies, that's up to him. Trump may stop it, but I don't know if I want that, because Mueller, I want to know, when did he know there was no conspiracy with the Trump campaign in Russia as it relates to collusion of any kind? When did he know that? Why did he hire only Democrats and even Hillary's attorney, and one attorney known for withholding exculpatory evidence and having a really bad track record and failing? And why was he not concerned about Hillary's dirty Russian dossier when he had plenty of time to look into medallions and FARA laws and loan applications and taxes? I would think the Russian dossier would have been important to Robert Mueller, but what do I know?
Well, somebody needs to look at this like Mueller looked at Trump. And here's the question. Why would the FBI classify this exchange between Steele and the State Department and the FBI April of this year?
Wow. Now, this is pretty interesting.
They classified
Will you pledge
the
to the
exchange.
American people tonight, Senator? As the Attorney General told you, I thought you had the best line of questioning last week, that it's important if Hillary's investigation into criminal activity was rigged, whether or not they tried to rig a presidential election, whether a fraud was committed against the FISA court, whether there was leaking of intel, whether the intel community was weaponized against the American people, and whether or not they tried to bludgeon the President of the United States with the opposition party candidate lies to unseat a duly elected president. Are all those issues on the table?
You better believe it for Attorney General Barr and myself. We've got to get to the bottom of it and make sure it never happens again.
Is the Mueller issue dead now?
Case closed.
Thank you, Senator. You're dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Wray, for being here this morning. I'd like to follow up on Senator Moran's question about the hearing we had with Attorney General Barr, because I was very concerned by his use of the word spying, which I think is a very loaded word. It conjures a criminal connotation. And I want to ask you, and I'd appreciate a yes or no answer if possible, when FBI agents conduct investigations against alleged mobsters, suspected terrorists, other criminals, do you believe that they're engaging in spying when they're following FBI investigative policies and procedures?
Well, that's not the term I would use.
Thank you. So I would say that's a no to that question.
Well, I mean, look, there are lots of people have different colloquial phrases. I believe that the FBI is engaged in investigative activity, and part of investigative activity includes surveillance activity of different shapes and sizes. And to me, the key question is making sure that it's done by the book, consistent with our lawful authorities. That's the key question. Different people use different colloquial phrases.
And as part of the investigative process, do FBI agents secure warrants for relevant evidence?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes. As part of an investigative process, like the investigative process into the 2016 presidential campaign, do FBI agents secure warrants for relevant evidence?
Certainly, securing warrants is a very important step that we take every day in the FBI in lots and lots of investigations.
So I would take that as a yes. Did FBI agents get warrants for information as part of their counter-surveillance investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election?
Well, I want to be a little bit careful about what I can discuss here, but I think it's been publicly disclosed that there were a number of relevant warrants that were secured in the course of that investigation.
Thank you. And do you believe, Director Wray, that the FBI and its agents spied into the 2016 presidential campaign operation?
Well, again, I want to be careful about how I answer that question here because there is an ongoing Inspector General investigation. I have my own thoughts based on limited information I've seen so far, but I don't think it would be ripe or appropriate for me to share those at this stage because I really do think it's important for everybody to respect the independent Inspector General's investigation, which I think this line of questioning starts to implicate, and I think it's very important for everybody to be able to have full confidence in his review.
And at this time, do you have any evidence that any illegal surveillance into the campaigns or individuals associated with the campaigns by the FBI occurred?
I don't think I personally have any evidence of that sort.
Thank you. Now, again, the Attorney General stated that he was assembling a team to look into the situation of illegal surveillance into the Trump presidential campaign and stated that he expected to work closely with you on this. Has the Attorney General asked you to look into or review the actions undertaken by the FBI regarding the counterintelligence investigation?
Well, as I said, he's trying to get a better understanding of the circumstances at the department and the FBI surrounding the initiation of this particular investigation. He and I have been in fairly close contact about it, and we're trying to work together to help him get the understanding that he needs on that subject. I think that's appropriate.
We are just hours away from a scheduled vote in the House Judiciary Committee on whether to hold Attorney General William Barr in contempt over his refusal to release an unredacted version of the Mueller report and other evidence, including grand jury material. Meanwhile, there seems to be at least a rhetorical split between Barr and his FBI director over whether the government spied on the Trump presidential campaign. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge shows us tonight.
Thank you for your presence here.
During a routine budget hearing, a Senate Democrat asked a wide-ranging question about FBI tactics, with the director avoiding the same spying language as his boss, the Attorney General.
That's not the term I would use.
I would say that's a no.
I believe that the FBI is engaged in investigative activity, and part of investigative activity includes surveillance activity.
Last month, Barr said spying occurred on the Trump campaign, questioning whether it was based on credible intelligence, leading to political pushback and a media frenzy. Last week, Barr stood by his choice of language.
I think spying is a good English word that, in fact, doesn't have synonyms because it is the broadest word incorporating really all forms of covert intelligence collections.
During the 2016 campaign, the FBI secured a surveillance warrant for a Trump campaign aide, Carter Page, which allows for communications collection well beyond the original target. When pressed, Director Wray answered carefully, citing the ongoing Inspector General investigation into alleged surveillance abuse during the 2016 campaign.
Do you have any evidence that any illegal surveillance into the campaigns or individuals associated with the campaigns by the FBI occurred?
I don't think I personally have any evidence of that sort.
As tensions between the Justice Department and the Democrat-led House Judiciary Committee escalate over access to the full special counsel report and underlying records, a senior Democrat shot back after the Senate Majority Leader said the Dems can't let go.
It's finally over. What we've seen is a meltdown, an absolute meltdown.
Mitch McConnell is aiding and abetting it by refusing to do anything. It may be that Trump wants the Russians to participate, and he's telling McConnell to do nothing.
The Democrat-led House Judiciary Committee is poised to vote Wednesday morning to hold Barr in contempt because the Justice Department has not provided the entire Mueller report, including grand jury material, which would require a court order. DOJ officials told reporters they continue to engage with committee staff, adding House Democrats impose, quote, unreasonable terms on the Attorney General, Brett.
Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.